I know the title sounds wild, but I swear nothing in my life prepared me for the level of chaos one HOA president could bring. All I wanted was a quiet place to work and drink my morning coffee in peace. Instead, I found myself dealing with someone who treated neighborhood bylaws like a sacred scroll and believed a ring of keys gave her unlimited power. What happened next? Let's just say it was a masterclass in timing and ego. If you've ever had to deal with someone who thinks the rules only apply to others, I want to hear about it in the comments. This is QA Stories, and yeah, it gets a little unhinged from here. She stood at my gate like she owned my land, but the keys in her hand were about to betray her. I'm Elliot Reed, 38 years old, and I work as a digital security consultant. Basically, I help companies protect their data and systems from hackers. It pays well, but city life was burning me out. The noise, the traffic, the constant stress of urban living. So I bought this beautiful cabin in a quiet HOA community about an hour outside the city. My plan? Turn it into the perfect remote workspace where I could focus on my projects without distractions. The cabin needed some upgrades to meet my work requirements. Most importantly, I wanted to install a private gate at the entrance to my driveway. See, I sometimes work with sensitive client data, and I needed that extra layer of security and privacy. I'm not even sure why I thought it would be simple. Looking back, I should have known better. The contractor warned me, "Watch out for the lady with the tape measure." I thought he was joking. The whole process seemed straightforward enough when I started researching HOA requirements and permit applications. I did everything by the book, applied for permits through the HOA, submitted detailed architectural plans, even paid the extra fees without complaining. After 2 weeks of review, I got official written approval with the HOA board's signature and official seal. Everything was legitimate and legal. The gate went up beautifully, modern design with clean lines that matched the neighborhood aesthetic perfectly. The contractor did excellent work, and for about a week, life was absolutely perfect. I actually thought I'd found my sanctuary. Then, I met Cynthia Ward, and, well, let's just say my peaceful retreat became anything but peaceful. I thought I left corporate tyranny behind, not knowing it had followed me in a bob haircut and orthopedic shoes. Cynthia Ward was the kind of person who made HOA horror stories come true. Picture this. A 52-year-old former library manager who treated our neighborhood like her personal kingdom. She had this perfectly styled brown bob haircut that never moved, gold-rimmed glasses that constantly slipped down her nose, and the kind of smile that made you instinctively check your pockets to see what was missing. Cynthia lived for control. She'd been HOA president for 7 years, and in that time, she transformed what should have been a simple homeowners association into something that felt more like a surveillance state. The Hendersons once got a written warning for having Halloween pumpkins out past November 2nd. She knew everyone's business. When you got home from work, what kind of car you drove, whether your grass was exactly 2.5 inches tall according to her interpretation of regulation. She had opinions about everything. And more importantly, she had the power to enforce those opinions through fines, violations, and constant harassment. She once silenced a Vietnam vet over mailbox design. People stopped attending meetings after that. It didn't make sense at the time how one person could wield so much influence over an entire community. The woman was obsessed with regulations, bylaws, and what she called maintaining community standards. What that really meant was everything had to be exactly how Cynthia wanted it, when she wanted it, no exceptions. She had this way of speaking that made everything sound like a personal attack on the community's values. "Mr. Johnson, your mailbox is 2 inches too far to the left. This creates visual discord that affects everyone's property values." That kind of thing? I mean, seriously, who talks like that? And my gate? My beautiful, properly permitted, completely legal gate that I'd spent weeks getting approved? It was about to become her next target. It was a Tuesday morning when I first saw her marching up my driveway like she owned the place. The metal of the gate shimmered in the morning light as Cynthia's shoes crunched across the gravel, her clipboard clutched like a weapon. She carried a thick folder of papers in one hand and an old measuring tape in the other. Her face had that look, you know the one, like she'd just caught someone stealing her newspaper. "Mr. Reed," she called out before she even reached the gate. "We need to discuss this structure." Structure? It was a gate. A normal, everyday residential gate. I walked outside to meet her, coffee mug in hand. "Good morning, Mrs. Ward. What can I help you with?" She immediately started measuring my gate, muttering numbers under her breath like she was calculating some complex mathematical formula. Then she flipped through her papers, dramatically making sure I could see how official and important they were. I wasn't sure if I should laugh or be concerned. The whole performance seemed so over the top. The way she handled that measuring tape like it was some kind of scientific instrument was almost comical. Was she actually quoting bylaws about gate height, or did I imagine the madness? This gate violates Section 7.3 of our community guidelines regarding height restrictions. It's 3 inches too tall, and the color, this deep green, doesn't match our approved color palette from Section 12.1. I blinked. 3 inches? And the color looked perfectly fine to me. It matched the natural surroundings beautifully. Mrs. Ward, I have the official approval right here. I pulled out my phone and showed her the digital copy of my permit, complete with signatures and the official HOA seal. Everything was reviewed and approved by the HOA board. She barely glanced at it, waving it away like it was irrelevant. That's based on outdated regulations. We've updated our standards. You have 48 hours to modify this gate to meet current specifications or remove it entirely, or you'll face significant financial penalties. That can't be right. Can it? I actually had to stop and stare at her after that one. Standing there, looking at her smug expression, I realized something important. This wasn't really about my gate at all. This was about power. This was about Cynthia establishing that nothing in this neighborhood happened without her personal approval, regardless of what the official paperwork said. But here's the thing about working in security consulting. You learn to spot power games and manipulation tactics from a mile away. Mrs. Ward, I said calmly, keeping my voice level and professional, I'll review the updated regulations you're referencing, and we can discuss this further once I have all the current information. The look on her face told me everything I needed to know. She expected me to panic, to immediately start apologizing and asking what I needed to do to fix things. Instead, I was staying calm and asking for documentation. She did not like that one bit. Maybe I should have just walked away. I don't know. But something about her attitude made me want to dig in my heels. I started wondering if I'd made a mistake moving here. Had I really escaped the corporate world only to find myself dealing with a neighborhood dictator? The dismissive way she treated official documentation was absolutely mind-blowing. Looking back, I still can't believe how quickly things escalated from that first conversation. Something told me Cynthia Ward wasn't the type to accept being challenged gracefully, and I was about to find out exactly how far she was willing to go. Watching Cynthia walk away, her jaw clenched in frustration, I had a choice to make. Back down and live under her thumb forever, or dig in for what could become the fight of my life. But sometimes, you don't really know which path you're choosing until it's too late to turn back. That evening, I did what any security professional would do. I investigated. I downloaded the current HOA regulations from our community website and compared them line by line to the printed versions Cynthia had shown me. What I found was absolutely infuriating. They were completely different documents. I kept flipping the pages, thinking maybe I was hallucinating. No. These were 2 entirely different rule sets. Cynthia's printed regulations were from 2019, 3 years old. The current regulations, the ones actually in effect and legally binding, clearly stated that my gate was perfectly compliant in every way. Height was within acceptable range, color was approved, installation was proper, everything checked out. I spent the entire night printing, highlighting, and pinning both versions side by side on my office wall. Red ink circled the real rule. Her version didn't even mention gate color. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was using outdated rules to create a fake problem that didn't actually exist. I'm not even sure why someone would go through all this trouble just to harass a neighbor. But why go through all this trouble for one gate? Why not just admit her mistake and move on? It didn't make sense at the time, but I was starting to realize this went much deeper than simple administrative confusion. The methodical way she'd presented those fake documents showed this was calculated deception. The answer hit me as I sat there reading through the documents. Cynthia couldn't stand that there was something in her neighborhood that she couldn't directly control. My gate represented independence from her authority, and that drove her absolutely crazy. This wasn't about community standards or property values. This was about a petty tyrant who couldn't tolerate anyone challenging her power. I wasn't sure if I was overreacting, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Looking back, I still can't believe someone would dedicate this much energy to something so petty. Instead of confronting her directly about the fake regulations, I decided to wait and see what her next move would be. Over the next few days, Cynthia launched what I can only describe as a psychological warfare campaign designed to make my life miserable. First came the emails, friendly reminders about various neighborhood rules that I was supposedly violating. parking my car in my own driveway instead of the garage, not actually a rule, leaving my porch light on past 11 p.m., completely made up, having packages delivered on weekdays instead of weekends, absolutely ridiculous. I started waking up at 3 a.m., checking if the porch light was off. That's not normal. Seriously? Did she really think I wouldn't notice these weren't real violations? The psychological pressure was becoming overwhelming. Then she started making comments to the neighbors. I'd see her talking to Walter, the retired postal worker who lived next door, gesturing toward my house while shaking her head disapprovingly. I could tell she was spreading some kind of narrative about me being a problem resident. When I finally asked Walter about it, he said uncomfortably, "She told me you were running some underground crypto thing in there." Walter could barely make eye contact. I didn't believe it, but she seemed so sure. I wish I could tell you I kept my cool, but come on, who wouldn't be frustrated by this constant harassment? The way she'd timed these conversations perfectly when I was visible through my windows was clearly intentional psychological pressure. But the final escalation came on Friday afternoon, and it revealed exactly how far Cynthia was willing to go. I was working in my home office when I heard voices outside. Through my window, I could see Cynthia talking to Walter near my gate. She was speaking loudly enough for me to hear, which was obviously intentional. The conversation was more intense than usual, with Cynthia gesturing dramatically toward my property. "Don't worry about Mr. Reed's attitude problem," she was saying. "The HOA has master keys for community access when necessary. He can lock that gate all he wants, but when it comes time for inspections or maintenance, we have ways to get in." She even tapped her pocket, like a sheriff in an old western. Master keys. She was threatening to use HOA master keys to enter my property whenever she felt like it. That's when I knew this had crossed the line from petty harassment into something much more serious. I actually had to sit down for a moment after hearing that. Looking back, I should have recorded that conversation, but I was too shocked to think clearly. She's not just annoying, she's dangerous. And she has keys. The casual way she talked about violating my privacy was absolutely chilling. The realization that she might actually have the physical ability to enter my property without permission sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't just about bureaucratic power games anymore. This was about my personal safety and security. Now here's where my professional background became really useful. When you work in security consulting, you learn that every system has vulnerabilities, including the people who run those systems. And Cynthia had just revealed a massive vulnerability. She thought she had more power than she actually possessed. That weekend, I made some strategic upgrades to my cabin's security, and I planned each one carefully. First, I replaced the lock on my gate with a brand new high-security smart lock system. The old lock was a standard residential model that might have been part of the HOA's master key system when the neighborhood was first built. The new one? Definitely wasn't. It was a completely different type of lock with digital encryption that no master key could touch. I'm not sure why I felt so satisfied installing that new lock, but something about taking back control felt incredible. Second, I installed a professional-grade security camera system with motion detection, night vision, and automatic cloud storage backup. If Cynthia tried anything, it would all be recorded in high definition from multiple angles, with timestamps and everything automatically saved off-site. Third, I prepared a backup phone with extra battery life and cleared storage space, just in case I needed to document anything in real time. But the most important preparation was mental and strategic. I started planning for a scenario where Cynthia would actually try to use her master key to get into my property. When would she do it? Probably when she thought I wasn't home. But what if I could arrange for her attempted break-in to happen at the worst possible moment for her? What if there was a witness she couldn't intimidate, dismiss, or threaten? What if that witness was someone with real authority, who could actually do something about her abuse of power? I wasn't sure if I was being paranoid or strategic, but the whole plan felt like it could actually work. As I sat there planning different scenarios, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a name I hadn't seen in months. Someone from my college days who'd taken a very different career path than mine. Someone whose unexpected call might be exactly the opportunity I needed. Looking back, I still can't believe the timing of that phone call. It didn't make sense at the time, but maybe the universe was setting up something bigger than I could imagine. I wasn't sure if I should answer. Part of me wondered if this was all getting too complicated, if maybe I should just remove the gate and avoid the whole conflict. But then, I remembered Cynthia's smug expression, her threats about master keys, and I knew I couldn't back down now. The whole situation was escalating beyond what I'd ever imagined when I first moved to this supposedly peaceful community. Staring at that incoming call, I realized this might be the universe offering me exactly what I needed to turn the tables on Cynthia, or setting me up for an even bigger disaster. Sometimes you can't tell the difference until you answer the phone. "Elliot, how's the hermit life treating you?" Of all the people to call me that day, Marcus Thorne. I hadn't said his name out loud in years. Marcus Thorne's voice brought back a flood of college memories. We'd been roommates sophomore year, study partners for our computer science classes, and stayed friends even as our careers took completely different directions. Back then he was broke, idealistic, always debating ethics in comp CI class. Now he ran the state. While I went into private sector security consulting, Marcus chose public service. He started as a city council member, then state legislature, and now he was Governor Marcus Thorne of our great state. The contrast between the struggling student I remembered and the powerful official calling me was almost surreal. "Marcus, I should have known you'd track me down eventually. The cabin life is actually pretty great, very peaceful, most of the time." I wasn't sure if I should mention the HOA drama, but something in his voice told me this wasn't just a social call. "That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about," he said. "I'm working on a new statewide initiative, upgrading cybersecurity infrastructure for local government systems across the state. I remember your senior thesis project on decentralized security networks. Think you might be interested in consulting on something like this?" The timing of this call felt almost too perfect to be real. My heart started racing. This was exactly the kind of meaningful project I'd dreamed of working on, using my skills to actually help communities instead of just protecting corporate profits. "Absolutely. When did you want to discuss the details?" "Well, that's the thing. My schedule is absolutely insane right now, but I have a brief window this Monday morning. I know it's short notice, but any chance I could come by your place? I'd love to see this famous cabin retreat you've been posting about, and we could talk privately about the project specifics." Monday morning. I looked at my calendar, completely free. "Of course, I'd love to have you visit." "Perfect. I'll drive up early Monday morning. Let's say I'll be there around 7:30 a.m. I can only stay about an hour before I have to get back for another meeting." After we hung up, I sat there processing what had just happened. The governor of our state was coming to visit my cabin Monday morning. The same Monday morning when Cynthia might decide to use her master key. The timing couldn't be more perfect if I'd planned it myself. Looking back, I should have realized this was too good to be true. But sometimes the universe aligns things in ways that seem impossible. Over the weekend, I carefully planned every single detail, like I was designing a security system. I even labeled them. Plan A, gate walk. Plan B, social media bait. Plan C, panic mode. I was pacing around my cabin, sketching out scenarios with post-its and notes scattered across my kitchen table. The whole thing felt like building a mousetrap, except I didn't know if the mouse would show up or bite. First, I needed to make sure Cynthia would think I wasn't home Monday morning. I posted a deliberately vague social media update. "Big client meeting downtown, first thing Monday, leaving super early. The hermit life will have to wait." Perfect bait. Cynthia definitely followed my social media accounts. I'd noticed her liking and commenting on posts with suspicious frequency. But here's the genius part. I deliberately made it look like I was leaving early Monday morning, when actually Marcus would be arriving early Monday morning. I'm not even sure why I felt so confident this would work, but something told me Cynthia was predictable enough to take the bait. The way she'd been monitoring my every move made her reaction almost guaranteed. Maybe I should have felt guilty about setting a trap, I don't know. But after weeks of harassment, it felt like justified strategy. Next, I double-checked all my security systems. Cameras were positioned to capture the gate area from multiple angles. Motion sensors were calibrated perfectly. Everything would be recorded automatically the moment anyone approached my property. I even did a test run, walking around the gate area to make sure every angle was covered and the audio quality was crystal clear. Then I started planning the exact scenario. Marcus would arrive early, we'd be inside having coffee and discussing the cybersecurity project. If Cynthia saw my car was gone from the street, I'd park it in the garage. She might think the coast was clear to try her master key stunt. She'd have no idea that the governor of our state was sitting in my living room. I wasn't sure if I was being paranoid or strategic, but the whole plan felt like it could actually work. The more I thought about it, the more excited I became about the possibility of catching her in the act. Looking back, I still can't believe how perfectly everything was falling into place. Monday morning at 7:15 a.m., I got a text from Marcus. Running a few minutes early, we'll be there in 10 minutes. Perfect timing. I quickly moved my car into the garage so it wouldn't be visible from the street, then made fresh coffee and set up 2 mugs on my kitchen table. The anticipation was almost unbearable as I waited for his arrival. At 7:25 a.m., Marcus arrived in a normal sedan. No official motorcade, no security detail. He was keeping this meeting low-key and unofficial. The gate hissed shut behind him. I handed him a mug, but I couldn't keep my hand from shaking slightly. "This place is incredible," he said as I led him through the gate and we walked to the front door. "I can see why you love it here." We settled in at my kitchen table with coffee, and Marcus started explaining the cybersecurity project. It was fascinating work, exactly the kind of thing I'd love to be involved with. But part of me kept glancing at my security camera app, wondering if Cynthia would actually show up. Looking back, I still can't believe how calm I felt in that moment, considering what was about to happen. At 7:45 a.m., I noticed movement on my security camera app. Motion alert, live feed, a blur in the tree line. Zoom in. Brown Bob, it's her. Cynthia was approaching through the trees, carrying her ring of keys. "Marcus," I said quietly, "I think we're about to have some unexpected entertainment. Remember that HOA president I mentioned who's been harassing me?" I showed him the live camera feed on my phone. Cynthia was creeping up to my gate, looking around to make sure no one was watching. "She's about to try to use a master key to break into my property," I whispered. "She has no idea you're in here." Marcus's eyes widened with interest. "This should be educational." We moved to the living room window, where we could watch everything unfold while staying hidden inside. I wasn't sure if I should feel guilty about setting this up, but watching Cynthia approach with such confidence, well, I figured she was about to learn an important lesson about overestimating her own authority. The irony of the situation was almost too perfect to believe. The woman who'd been terrorizing our neighborhood was about to commit a crime in front of the most powerful person in the state. As we watched Cynthia approach my gate with her master keys, completely unaware that the governor was sitting in my living room, watching her every move, I wondered if I was about to witness perfect justice in action, or if I'd just put my old friend in an incredibly awkward situation. At 7:50 a.m., Marcus and I watched through my living room window as Cynthia crept up to my gate like she was conducting a covert military operation. She pulled out her ring of master keys with absolute confidence, the kind that only comes from years of never being challenged or questioned. She held them up like they were magic wands that could solve any problem and open any door. Her posture was rigid, shoulders back, breath controlled like she was preparing for surgery. The sound of keys clinking together echoed in the morning silence. "Perfect," she muttered to herself, loud enough for our security microphones to pick up. "Mr. Reed is downtown at his meeting. Time to remind him who really runs this neighborhood." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "She's actually going to try to break in?" "Watch and learn," I whispered back. I don't know why I held my breath. Maybe part of me feared it would work, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't. Cynthia approached my gate like she owned it, completely certain of her power and authority. She inhaled sharply, inserted the first key like a ritual, twisted, and nothing happened. The lock didn't budge. Her face registered confusion before she could stop it. I actually had to bite my lip to keep from laughing out loud. Looking back, I should have known this moment would be absolutely priceless. The look of confusion that crossed her face was better than any movie scene I'd ever watched. Marcus and I had front row seats to watch Cynthia's face change from confident expectation to bewilderment. She tried the key again, wiggling it around, applying more pressure. Still absolutely nothing. "That's impossible," she muttered, pulling out a second key from her ring. The second key didn't even fit properly in the lock mechanism. Third key, fourth key, fifth key. Each attempt became more frantic and desperate. Cynthia was starting to sweat despite the cool morning air. Her breathing became shallow, almost panicked. "I don't understand this," she said, her voice rising with frustration. "These keys open every single gate in the entire neighborhood." She tried several more keys, then started pulling on the gate itself. She rattled the metal framework, pushed against it with her shoulder, even tried lifting it slightly to see if it would come loose from its hinges. "This is absolutely impossible," she said, her voice now loud enough that neighbors might hear. "Master keys are supposed to work on everything. This lock is illegal. It has to be." Seriously, did she really believe her own propaganda that much? The desperation in her voice was almost painful to listen to. Watching her flail like this, was I being petty? Or was this justice with perfect timing? Marcus was watching with fascination. "She sounds like she's auditioning for a reality show," he said, quietly. "Does she realize she's committing a crime on camera, with a witness who writes the state budget?" "She absolutely does not," I replied. "Watch what happens next." The beautiful irony was that her master keys probably would have worked perfectly on the old lock that came with the original gate installation. But I'd upgraded to a smart lock system that wasn't part of any master key network. "Wait," Marcus said quietly. "Is she actually trying to break and enter while I'm sitting here?" "That's exactly what she's doing," I confirmed. "She thinks nobody's watching, except she doesn't know the governor is witnessing it." He didn't move, just sipped his coffee, but I could see the wheels turning. Cynthia was now in full panic mode, trying key after key while muttering increasingly frustrated comments about her authority and rights. Technology 1, neighborhood tyrant 0. After about 10 minutes of complete failure, Cynthia finally stopped and stared at the lock in disbelief. "He changed the lock," she said to herself. "He actually changed the lock." Then her expression shifted from confusion to pure rage. "How dare he," she said, loud enough for our microphones to pick up clearly. "This is a direct violation of HOA authority. No one changes locks without permission. I have jurisdiction. I am the HOA." She started pounding on the gate with her fists, then began yelling at the gate itself like it had betrayed her. "Mr. Reed," she shouted, "I know you can hear me. Open this gate immediately." Marcus looked at me with amazement. "She's completely unhinged." "This is nothing," I said. "Wait until you see what happens when she realizes someone's actually home. This is really happening. She's trying to break in, and I'm watching her fall apart. With a governor beside me, Cynthia continued shouting and rattling the gate for another few minutes. Then she pulled out her phone and started making calls. I actually had to stop and stare at her after that display. Was she really going to call for backup over a lock that didn't open for her? The entitlement was absolutely staggering to witness in person. "This is Cynthia Ward, HOA president," we could hear her saying. "I need immediate assistance with a violation enforcement." "What do you mean you can't help with a private gate? This is official HOA business." She hung up in frustration, then immediately dialed another number. "Hello, police? I need to report a violation of community access rights." "What do you mean that's not a police matter?" Marcus was trying not to laugh. "How long has this been going on?" "Weeks," I said, "but today is the first time she's actually tried to break in." Finally, Cynthia stepped back from the gate, looking completely defeated and furious. That's when I made my decision. I looked at the door handle, then at Marcus. He nodded once. Calm, lethal. This was the moment. "Ready to meet my HOA president?" I asked Marcus. He grinned. "This is the most entertainment I've had in months. Let's do it." Would this ruin her life or save the rest of us? Looking back, I still can't believe I actually had the nerve to walk out there, but something about having the governor as a witness made me feel invincible. Maybe I should have let her dig herself even deeper first. I don't know. But I was ready to end this charade once and for all. As I reached for my front door handle, ready to step outside and introduce Cynthia to the governor she had no idea was watching her attempted break-in, I wondered if I was about to create the most awkward confrontation in HOA history, or the most satisfying moment of justice I'd ever witness. I opened my front door and stepped outside with Marcus right behind me. "Good morning, Mrs. Ward," I called out pleasantly. "Having some trouble with something?" My voice was calm, but inside, my heart was tap dancing on adrenaline. Cynthia spun around, her face going through several emotions at once: surprise, embarrassment, and then immediate anger. Her jaw dropped, eyes darting, hands stiff, like she just realized she'd walked into her own trial. "Mr. Reed, you're supposed to be downtown at a meeting. What are you doing here?" "I'm having a meeting," I said calmly, "just not where you thought." I paused, half a beat, then stepped aside. The governor didn't say a word. He didn't need to. That's when Marcus stepped into view. "Mrs. Ward," I continued, "I'd like you to meet my old college friend, Governor Marcus Thorne. Governor, this is Cynthia Ward, our HOA president." The look on Cynthia's face was absolutely priceless. You could literally watch her brain short-circuit as she tried to process what was happening. The man she'd been shouting at, whose presence she'd been demanding police assistance for, was standing next to the governor of our state, the governor who had just witnessed her attempted break-in from inside my living room. "This is all a misunderstanding. I was just conducting a safety check," she stammered desperately. I wasn't sure if I should feel sorry for her or satisfied, but honestly, after weeks of harassment, satisfaction was winning. Governor Thorne, she said, her voice shaking, I was just trying to break into my friend's property with unauthorized keys, Marcus asked politely. Do you normally inspect private homes without consent? Is this part of your official role? No, that's not. I have legitimate authority here, Cynthia said, her voice rising to near panic levels. The HOA has access rights for inspections and maintenance. The rules are vague, but everyone knows I'm in charge. I see, Marcus said calmly. And what exactly were you inspecting this morning? His gate. It violates community standards and... She started, then realized how ridiculous she sounded explaining fake violations to the governor. I wish I could tell you I kept my cool during this whole exchange, but come on. Watching someone's entire power structure collapse in real time is pretty incredible. Mrs. Ward, I said, pulling out my phone, I have video footage of everything that just happened. Would you like to see it? I showed both of them the security camera footage of Cynthia trying key after key, shouting about her authority, pounding on the gate and calling the police. The bylaws she's quoting haven't been valid since 2019, I added quietly. This is all completely legal, she insisted desperately. I have every right to access this property for official HOA business. Actually, Marcus said thoughtfully, I'm curious about that. What specific authority gives you the right to enter private property without the owner's permission? Cynthia opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water. She couldn't explain that she was using outdated regulations to create fake violations. She couldn't admit that she was systematically abusing her position. The HOA bylaws clearly state, she began. Which bylaws specifically? Marcus asked. I'd love to see the documentation. He didn't raise his voice, just listed facts. Legal definitions, state statutes, the kind of quiet that silences rooms. I'd seen Marcus debate in college, but now he was like a scalpel in a suit. That's when Cynthia made her biggest mistake. I don't have to explain HOA authority to anyone, she snapped. Not even to you. This is a community matter. You can't remove me. I built this community. The silence that followed was deafening. I actually had to stop and stare at her after that one. Did she really just tell the governor that she didn't have to explain her actions to him? Marcus looked at me, then back at Cynthia. Looking back, I should have seen this meltdown coming, but the sheer audacity of her response still shocked me. Mrs. Ward, I think there might be some confusion about the extent of HOA authority versus state law regarding private property rights. Furthermore, Marcus continued, attempting to enter someone's private property without permission, regardless of your position in the HOA, could be considered criminal trespass under state law. Cynthia's face went completely white. I think, Marcus said, turning to me, this situation might benefit from a review by the State HOA Oversight Board. Those words hit Cynthia like a physical blow. That won't be necessary, she said quickly. This was all just a misunderstanding. Was it? Marcus asked, because from what I observed through the window, this appeared to be a deliberate attempt to gain unauthorized access to private property. You were watching? Cynthia whispered. We were having coffee and discussing a cybersecurity project, I explained. We had a perfect view of everything you did. The security cameras also recorded everything, Marcus added, including your statements about having the right to enter the property and your demands for police assistance. I wasn't sure if I should feel guilty about the trap we'd set, but honestly, Cynthia had walked into this completely on her own. Cynthia realized she was trapped. Everything she'd done had been witnessed by the most powerful person in the state and recorded on high-definition video. I was trying to maintain community standards, she said weakly. By breaking into someone's property? Marcus asked. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered every neighbor she fined, every rule she faked. Looking back, I still can't believe how quickly her entire facade crumbled once she was confronted by real authority. For weeks, she'd been this intimidating figure who controlled every aspect of our neighborhood, and now she was standing there stammering like a caught teenager. Maybe I should have felt sorry for her, I don't know, but after all the harassment, all the fake violations, all the threats, watching her realize that her power was completely imaginary felt like perfect justice. The transformation from neighborhood tyrant to defeated trespasser happened so fast it was almost surreal. For the first time since I moved in, the air felt still. She wasn't in control anymore, and we all saw it. As I watched Marcus calmly question Cynthia about her actions, I could see her entire power structure crumbling in real time, but I still wasn't sure if she was finally going to face real consequences or if she'd somehow find a way to twist this situation to her advantage like she always had before. Marcus pulled out his phone and made a call right there in front of Cynthia. "Hi, this is Governor Thorne. I need you to connect me with the director of the state HOA oversight board. Yes, it's urgent. I always imagined justice coming slowly, not in the form of one phone call made calmly over black coffee." Cynthia stood frozen, blinking rapidly. Her mouth moved but no sound came out, as if she'd been unplugged. "Director Martinez? I'm standing in a residential community where I've just witnessed what appears to be attempted criminal trespass by an HOA president. Yes, I'll send you all the details. I think a full compliance review is warranted." After he hung up, Marcus turned to Cynthia. "Someone will be in touch with you within 24 hours to schedule a formal interview." "This is all unnecessary," Cynthia said desperately. "I can explain everything." "I'm sure you can," Marcus replied, "and you'll have that opportunity with the state investigators." I wasn't sure if I should feel triumphant or nervous about what I'd set in motion, but something told me this was bigger than just my gate situation. Looking back, I should have realized that someone who would try to break into my property probably had other skeletons in her closet. The way Marcus handled the whole situation with such professional calm was really impressive to watch. Within 48 hours, everything in our community changed completely. 3 government sedans pulled up to the HOA office, neighbors peeked through blinds, no one dared step outside. The official nature of the investigation was both thrilling and terrifying. The state HOA Oversight Board sent a team of investigators to conduct a thorough review of our community's governance procedures, financial management, and complaint resolution processes. They started by interviewing every resident who'd had dealings with Cynthia. What they discovered was shocking, even to me. Cynthia hadn't just been harassing me with her fake violations and master key threats. She'd been systematically abusing her position for years, targeting anyone who dared to question her authority. For the first time, I saw Walter standing tall, not shrinking into his hoodie when Cynthia passed. Walter, who'd been quietly terrified of Cynthia for as long as anyone could remember, finally found the courage to speak up during the official investigation. I'm not even sure why I was surprised that other people had been suffering too, but hearing the full scope of her abuse was absolutely infuriating. The investigators uncovered case after case of Cynthia's abuse of power. Walter testified directly to the investigators. "She fined me because my rescue dog didn't match her idea of a purebred." Walter had been fined $200 for having an inappropriate dog breed because his mixed breed rescue dog didn't meet Cynthia's personal aesthetic standards. There was no such rule in the actual bylaws. A young mother from down the street told them, "She said my garden gnome was culturally disruptive." What does that even mean? A young couple had been forced to remove their beautiful garden decorations because Cynthia decided they weren't in keeping with traditional community values. The decorations were perfectly normal, seasonal displays that other neighbors loved. Another young couple had been threatened with fines for noise violations because they practiced acoustic guitar in their own home with windows open on weekend afternoons. An elderly neighbor had been cited for improper holiday decorations for putting up festive lights in her own yard. Even our mail carrier had complained to the Postal Service about Cynthia intercepting packages and demanding to inspect them for community materials. Seriously? Did she really think she had the authority to inspect people's mail? I actually had to stop and stare at the investigator when they told me that one. The pattern of targeting anyone who showed independence or joy was absolutely chilling. That night, I stared at my gate, wondering how long I would have kept enduring if Marcus hadn't called. Part of me hated the spotlight, but a bigger part knew it wasn't just about me anymore. Maybe if I'd stood up to her sooner, other neighbors wouldn't have had to endure years of harassment. I don't know. The guilt of not acting earlier was almost as overwhelming as the relief of finally seeing justice. The financial audit revealed the most serious problems. The lead investigator stood before an emergency board meeting and read out the findings. $15,000 in undocumented fees, unauthorized duplication of community access keys, reimbursement claims for surveillance patrol hours. Cynthia had been collecting fines for violations that didn't exist in the bylaws, then pocketing the money through fake administrative fees. She'd used HOA funds to have multiple copies of master keys made for her personal use, claiming they were for emergency access. She'd been billing the HOA for hours spent investigating violations, essentially getting paid to harass neighbors. Most seriously, she'd been manipulating HOA votes by claiming certain residents were not in good standing due to fake violations, which prevented them from voting on important community decisions. Murmurs turned into gasps. Someone whispered, "She's been robbing us this whole time." The total financial damage was around $15,000, but the abuse of democratic processes was priceless. I wasn't sure if I should feel angry or vindicated, but honestly, discovering the full extent of her corruption made me realize how right I'd been to stand up to her. Looking back, I still can't believe one person was able to get away with this level of systematic abuse for so long. The investigators said it was one of the worst cases of HOA corruption they'd ever seen. During her formal interview with state investigators, Cynthia's defense strategy was to claim everything was legitimate community management. When presented with video evidence of her attempted break-in, she insisted she was conducting necessary property inspection. When confronted with testimonies from multiple neighbors, she claimed she was maintaining important community standards. When shown proof of financial irregularities, she said everything was authorized administrative costs. But the investigators had done their homework. They'd read every version of our HOA bylaws, compared them to state regulations, and interviewed legal experts. None of Cynthia's explanations held up to scrutiny. I wish I could tell you I felt sorry for her during this process, but honestly, after seeing how many people she'd hurt, I just felt relieved that someone with real authority was finally holding her accountable. The way she continued to justify her behavior, even when caught with overwhelming evidence, was truly disturbing. I wasn't sure if she'd face charges. People like her slip through cracks. But at least now, the whole neighborhood saw the truth. As the investigation revealed the full scope of Cynthia's systematic abuse of power, I realized this was bigger than just my gate or even our neighborhood. That I still didn't know if the state would actually hold her accountable, or if she'd somehow escape consequences like powerful people often do. 3 weeks after Marcus witnessed Cynthia's attempted break-in, the State Oversight Board issued their comprehensive ruling. The board's letter was short, brutal, and final. Cynthia Ward was stripped of authority, permanently. Every sentence felt like a stone lifted off someone's chest. Cynthia Ward was permanently banned from serving in any HOA leadership position anywhere in the state. She was required to pay back all misappropriated funds, plus penalties. Our community was placed under temporary state supervision until new leadership could be elected. Most importantly, criminal charges were filed for attempted trespass and mail tampering. But beyond Cynthia's personal consequences, the state mandated that our HOA adopt completely new governance procedures with built-in checks and balances to prevent future abuse of power. The era of one-person HOA tyranny was officially over in our community. I wasn't sure if I should feel vindicated or exhausted, but honestly, seeing justice finally served felt incredible. Looking back, I still can't believe how quickly everything changed once someone with real authority got involved. Maybe I should have contacted the State Oversight Board months earlier, I don't know, but sometimes it takes the perfect storm of circumstances to create real change. The thoroughness of their investigation and the severity of the penalties really restored my faith in the system. 6 months later, our neighborhood was completely transformed. We elected a new HOA board through a transparent process. 3 neighbors who understood their job was to maintain common areas and enforce clearly written, reasonable rules. Children played in yards again. The guitar-playing couple hosted a Saturday jam. Lawn gnomes returned. Walter adopted a second rescue dog and started a neighborhood pet play group. Under new leadership, the only pet requirements were proper licensing and vaccinations. Walter left dog biscuits in everyone's mailbox. The new board organized a potluck. No one got fined for mismatched chairs. A young family reinstalled their beautiful garden decorations, which became a beloved neighborhood landmark that everyone enjoyed. The elderly neighbors' holiday decorations became an annual community celebration that brought everyone together. The couple who played guitar started giving free guitar lessons to neighborhood kids on weekend afternoons. My gate remained exactly where it was, properly permitted and completely legal. It became a symbol of the right to privacy and personal boundaries. But the real change was in the community atmosphere. People weren't afraid anymore. Neighbors actually talked to each other instead of worrying about being reported for imaginary violations. It didn't make sense at the time how much fear one person had created, but removing that toxic influence transformed our entire community dynamic. We had monthly community meetings where real issues were discussed openly and democratically. Property values actually went up because people wanted to live in a community that functioned like a community instead of a police state. As for Cynthia herself, she moved out about a month after the criminal charges were filed. No farewell. Just a moving truck at dawn, a for sale sign planted like a white flag. She sold her house quickly and relocated to another state, apparently to avoid the ongoing legal proceedings. About 2 months after she left, I received a letter from her attorney requesting that I sign a statement saying she'd acted in good faith during her time as HOA president. I read her lawyer's request twice, then I put it through the shredder. I wasn't sure if I should feel sorry for her or satisfied with her exile, but honestly, the peace in our community spoke for itself. Marcus and I stayed in touch, and the cybersecurity project moved forward successfully. He occasionally asks about my HOA situation and always laughs when I tell him updates. You know, he told me recently, in all my years in politics, I've never seen someone self-destruct so spectacularly. She literally tried to commit a crime while the governor was watching. The irony of that statement never gets old. He sent me a photo from the cybersecurity rollout, captioned, "Still prefer your cabin over the Capitol." Looking back on the whole experience, I've learned something important about bullies and tyrants, whether they run HOAs or countries. They only have as much power as we give them. Cynthia controlled our neighborhood for years because everyone was afraid to challenge her. We all suffered individually instead of standing together. But the moment someone with real authority witnessed her behavior, her fake power evaporated instantly. The gate was never really about security or privacy. It was about boundaries. The right to make decisions about my own property and life. When someone tries to cross your boundaries through intimidation and fake authority, you have two choices: submit or stand up. I chose to stand up, and it led to the most satisfying example of instant justice I've ever experienced. Whether it's an abusive HOA president, a workplace bully, or anyone else who thinks they can control your life through fear, remember that their power is often much more limited than they want you to believe. The real lock wasn't on my gate, it was on our fear, and the key was never hers to begin with. Sometimes all it takes is one witness, one camera, or one phone call to the right person to bring their whole house of cards crashing down. The key is recognizing when someone's authority is real versus when it's just an illusion built on intimidation. That's my story about a gate, a master key, and the morning when perfect timing delivered perfect justice. Sometimes the universe puts exactly the right person in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Thanks for watching, and remember, your boundaries are always worth defending, especially when the governor is having coffee in your kitchen. I'm not even sure why everything aligned so perfectly that Monday morning, but I'm grateful it did. Looking back, I should have known that standing up to bullies always feels terrifying in the moment, but the relief and satisfaction afterward makes it completely worth it. Funny thing is, she really believed that master key opened everything. But that morning, the only thing it unlocked was the end of her reign. And maybe you've known a Cynthia or two in your own life. Someone who thought they could steamroll boundaries just because no one had stopped them yet. If this story made you think of a moment when you finally stood your ground, I'd love to hear about it. Drop it in the comments. We're building a whole collection of real-life poetic justice right here on Q Stories. And hey, if you're into this kind of neighborhood madness with a side of satisfying payback, hit like and subscribe. More gates, more chaos. It's only uphill from here.
Thanks for watching QA Stories. If you enjoyed this one, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more wild tales coming your way.